Home Studio Start podcast.
Have you ever found yourself listening to your favorite podcast and thinking, you know what? I could do that. I've got something to say, something I'm passionate about.
Yeah, that little voice.
Exactly. That dream of stepping up to the mic, connecting with people, all from like your own home office or spare room. It feels big, but honestly, it's way more achievable than you probably think.
Totally.
So today on The Deep Dive, we're going to cut through all the noise, all the confusing tech talk, and really give you the essential blueprint to make that podcasting dream happen.
Yeah, we're diving into this really fantastic guide. It's from the Home Studio Start blog, written by Rodrigo Marquez. He's a seasoned audio expert.
Oh, yeah, I've seen his stuff. Home recording made easy, Ray. That's his slogan.
That's the one. And what I think is so insightful about Rodrigo's approach is that he doesn't just, throw a list of gear at you. He really breaks down the whole process.
Right.
So our mission with this deep dive is basically your shortcut. We want you to understand every key step so you can turn that spare room or, yes, honestly, even a closet into your own little broadcast studio.
Without needing a monster budget either. Sounding professional, but affordably.
Exactly. It's totally doable.
Okay, let's get into it then. When most people think about starting, I feel like the first hurdle is always the gear. Like, what do we actually need to sound good beyond, just hitting record on our phone?
Right, the phone mic temptation. Rodrigo's core point isn't about having, tons of equipment. It's about getting the right essential pieces.
Okay.
He argues, pretty convincingly, I think, that for most people starting out, a good quality microphone, some reliable closed-back headphones, and a computer that can run recording software, what we call DAW, digital audio workstation, that's like 80% of the battle right there.
80%, wow.
Yeah. And the microphone, for instance, that's your voice's direct connection to your listeners. A cheap mic or just the wrong type of mic, it can instantly make you sound kind of distant, muffled.
And you lose that connection.
Totally. You lose that intimacy you're trying to build.
Okay, so mic first. Makes sense. What are some top picks then, especially if you're just starting, maybe recording solo at home?
For solo folks and beginners, USB microphones are super popular. And for good reason, they're basically plug and play. Kind of like an all-in-one deal.
Easy.
Yeah. The Blue Yeti USB mic, that's a classic starting point. It's really versatile because it has multiple polar patterns.
Polar patterns. Remind me.
Ah, right. That's just how the microphone picks up sound, from which direction. So cardioid mode picks up sound mostly from the front, which is great for just you talking.
Okay.
But then it might have an omnidirectional mode too, which picks up sound from all around. Useful if you maybe have a guest sitting across from you sharing the same mic.
Gotcha.
It's known for a nice, warm, clear sound. The one thing is, it can be sensitive and pick up room noise, so you ideally want a fairly quiet space for it.
Okay, but what if your space isn't that quiet? Like maybe you live in an apartment building, there's traffic noise, that kind of thing.
Great question. And that's where a dynamic USB mic really shines, something like the Shure MV7. It's a hybrid, actually USB and XLR.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, super flexible. So unlike condenser mics like the Yeti, which tend to pick up more room sound, dynamic mics are designed to focus just on the sound right in front of them. This makes them brilliant at rejecting background noise.
So better for less than perfect rooms.
Exactly. Perfect for typical home environments. Plus, that MV7 has this really useful auto level mode, which helps keep your volume consistent. Great if you're still kind of figuring out mic technique,
Yeah, that sounds super helpful. So those are great for starting simple, but what if you're already thinking, okay, maybe I'll have a co-host eventually, or I just really want that pro broadcast quality sound from day one?
Right, then you're probably looking at stepping up to XLR microphones. Now, these generally offer maybe slightly higher sound quality potential and definitely more flexibility down the line for upgrades. A fantastic choice in this category is the Rode PodMic. It's a dynamic mic. Again, great for minimizing background noise. And it was literally designed for podcasting.
Ah, okay.
So it gives you that rich kind of broadcasty sound, but at a price that's still pretty accessible. Now, the catch with XLR mics.
There's always a catch?
Well, not really a catch, just something you need. They require an audio interface. Think of it like an external sound card. It takes the mic's analog signal, converts it to digital for your computer, and often provides something called phantom power, which some mics need.
Got it. Interface needed for XLR.
And then there's the mic, right? The one you see in pictures of all the pro studios, the big podcasts, the Holy Grail.
You know the one, the Shure SM7B.
Yep.
It's the Holy Grail for a reason. It's another dynamic mic, but it's just renowned for this incredibly smooth, warm, rich vocal tone.
Sounds amazing. It is. And its ability to isolate your voice from room noise is just top tier. It is an investment, though. And you need to know it requires a good amount of gain, basically, signal boost. So you need a decent audio interface with strong preamps, or maybe an inline preamp booster, like a Cloud Lifter.
Right, so it needs a bit more support. Okay, so speaking of audio interfaces then, if we do go the XLR route, what should we be looking for?
Well, for solo podcasters, or maybe if you have one co-host, the Focusrite Scarlett 2i2 is like the go-to recommendation. Super popular, known for clean preamps, really clear sound, reliable.
Okay, Scarlett 2i2, simple, solid.
Exactly. But if you're thinking, multiple guests, maybe recording on the go sometimes, or you just want it all in one box, check out the Zoom PodTrack P4.
Ooh, Zoom makes those.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's a portable recorder. It has 4 XLR inputs, so 4 mics right there. Individual headphone outputs for everyone, which is crucial. It even has built-in sound pads, for playing jingles or sound effects live.
Oh, cool.
And get this. It can record directly to an SD card, so you don't even need a computer connected while you're recording. Super versatile.
That sounds incredibly useful, actually. Wow. Okay, mics, interfaces. You mentioned headphones earlier, said they were crucial. Why closed back specifically?
Right, closed back headphones. Vital. 2 main reasons. First, they seal around your ears, preventing the sound from your headphones from leaking out and getting picked up by your microphone. That's called bleed, and it sounds really unprofessional.
Ah, okay. Stops that echoey feedback thing.
Exactly. Second, that seal also helps block out external noise so you can accurately hear what the microphone is actually picking up. You can monitor your audio quality in real time, catch if your levels are too high and causing distortion, that's called clipping, or hear if the air conditioning just kicked on in the background.
So we fix problems as they happen, not find them later in editing.
Precisely. Saves you a ton of headache. Industry standard for this is often the Sony MDR 7506. They're known for being really accurate, durable, and good isolation. A great, more budget-friendly option, though, is the Audio-Technica ATH M20X. Still gives you good sound and that crucial isolation.
Makes sense. Okay, so all this gear needs power and processing. The computer. Do I need like a beast of a gaming machine to handle podcasting?
No, definitely not a top-tier gaming rig. But you do want something reasonably modern. A multi-core processor is pretty important for handling audio smoothly. Think like an Intel i5 or i7, an AMD Ryzen 5 or 7, or one of the Apple M-series chips if you're on a Mac.
Okay. And RAM, memory.
Yeah, RAM's important too. 8 gigabytes is really the minimum, I'd say. But 16 gigabytes or more, that's going to give you a much smoother ride, especially if you start working with multiple audio tracks, music effects, that kind of stuff.
Right. Things can add up.
They can. And storage, definitely go for an SSD, a solid-state drive, if you can. For your operating system and your project files, at least. They're just so much faster than old traditional hard drives. Makes everything load quicker, recording smoother. Maybe 500 gigs or a terabyte to start. And make sure you have enough USB ports for your mic, interface, whatever else you're plugging in.
Good point about the ports. Okay, computer sorted. That powers our recording software, the DAW you mentioned. Lots of options there, right? From free to like super pro.
Oh yeah, tons of options. On the free side, Audacity is the king for beginners. It's available for basically any computer, and it's surprisingly powerful for basic recording, editing, cutting out mistakes, trimming silence, adjusting volume, applying simple effects. It gets the job done.
Can't be free to start.
Absolutely. If you're on a Mac or even an iPhone or iPad, GarageBand is another fantastic free option. Super user-friendly, really intuitive interface, easy to record, edit, add music, loops. It's a great starting point. And if you ever want more power, the jump to Apple's Spray software, Logic Pro, feels pretty natural.
Okay. And then moving into the paid stuff.
Right. If you need more advanced features, Adobe Audition is a really strong contender. It's part of Adobe's Creative Cloud subscription. It's got incredibly powerful tools, especially for things like noise reduction and audio repair, multi-track editing. It's professional grade. Does have a bit more of a learning curve, though.
Expected, I guess.
Yeah. And then there's Reaper. This one's interesting. It's incredibly affordable. You usually pay a one-time fee for a personal license. But it is super powerful and highly customizable. A lot of pros actually prefer it because it's efficient, flexible, and doesn't hog your computer's resources. Maybe a slightly steeper learning curve initially because it's so customizable, but Amazing value.
Wow, lots to choose from. But the takeaway seems to be you definitely don't need like $1 million studio setup to get started. Rodrigo really hammers this home in the guide, right? He uses that example of Sarah, the baking podcaster.
Yeah, Sarah's story is a perfect illustration. She just wanted to share her love for baking, right? Didn't have a massive budget. So following Rodrigo's advice, she grabbed a decent USB mic, not even the most expensive one, used the laptop she already had, downloaded Audacity because it was free, and plugged in some old gaming headphones she had lying around.
You're resourceful.
Totally. She found the quietest room in her house, put the mic on a little desk stand, and just started talking, walking through a recipe. And Rodrigo points out, look, was it Abbey Road studio quality? No. But was it clear? Was it listenable? Absolutely. It proved you can start simple and still sound good enough to connect with listeners.
That's the key, isn't it? Clear and listenable. So the big practical tip from Rodrigo here is,
Don't feel like you have to buy the absolute best, most expensive gear right out of the gate. His advice is super actionable. Start with reliable, maybe entry-level or mid-range equipment. Get comfortable with the process recording, talking into a mic, basic editing. Then later on, as your podcast grows, as you learn more about what you specifically need, then you can think about upgrading specific pieces.
start simple, learn, then upgrade. Makes total sense. Okay, so you've got your gear. You followed Rodrigo's advice. You've got your mic, your headphones. Now the guide shifts to something that's honestly maybe even more important but often overlooked, your recording space. How do you turn like your regular room into something that sounds good? Because I'm picturing my living room right now, lots of echo.
Right. And that echo is the enemy. Rodrigo makes a crucial point here. The goal isn't necessarily full soundproofing that's complex, expensive, involves construction usually. The goal is sound treatment, minimizing unwanted noise, and, critically, those echoes, that reverb.
Okay, sound treatment, not soundproofing. What's the difference?
Soundproofing stops sound getting in or out. Sound treatment controls how sound behaves inside the room. And Rodrigo argues, and I completely agree, that your room acoustics often have a bigger impact on your final sound quality than the microphone itself.
Wow, bigger than the mic.
Often, yeah. So first step, find the quietest spot you can. Could be a bedroom that faces away from the street, maybe a basement, or, like Rodrigo suggests, even a walk-in closet. Seriously, closets can work wonders because they're small and often full of clothes, which absorb sound.
A closet studio. I love it.
Hey, whatever works. The main thing is to avoid rooms with lots of hard, flat, reflective surfaces. Think bare walls, tile floors, big windows. Those things bounce sound around like crazy, creating that echo and reverb that makes you sound like you're recording in a bathroom.
Okay, so avoid the echo chambers. Got it. It's about absorbing the sound then.
Exactly. That's the core principle of basic acoustic treatment. Soft surfaces absorb sound waves instead of reflecting them. And the great news is, you probably have stuff around the house right now that can help.
Like what?
Blankets. Thick ones are great. Pillows, duvets, heavy curtains, rugs on the floor. Even a fabric couch in the room helps a ton. You're basically trying to cover up those hard surfaces.
So raid the linen closet.
Pretty much. Then, think about where you place your microphone. Generally, you want to point it away from noise sources, like maybe don't face the window where traffic noise comes in.
Yeah.
And try pointing it towards softer surfaces that will absorb your voice rather than bounce it back.
Ah, strategic pointing.
Yeah. And simple stuff, like making sure your computer fan isn't blowing right into the mic, put it on a stable desk so you don't bump it. If you connect this to the bigger picture, just understanding these basic acoustic principles and using household items effectively, that can save you a ton of money on fancy foam panels and make a massive improvement to your sound.
That is such a practical approach. Using what you've got. Let's think about Mark, the example Rodrigo uses. He wanted to record his gaming podcast, but his living room was super echoey, right? What did he end up doing?
Mark's situation is really common. So following Rodrigo's advice, he tried setting up in a small spare bedroom instead. It wasn't perfect, but it was better than the living room. He hung a couple of thick blankets on the wall behind where he was sitting, maybe tossed a few pillows in the corners or on the floor. Then he positioned his microphone so it was facing a wall that already had a thick curtain over the window. He did a quick test recording. The difference was huge. The echo was way less noticeable compared to the living room. His voice sounded much clearer, more present, more professional, just from using blankets and pillows.
That's genuinely amazing.
Yeah.
Simple fixes, big results.
It really is. So the practical tip here is crystal clear. Before you go online and spend hundreds on acoustic foam panels, just try the household stuff first. hang some blankets, strategically place pillows, close the curtains, record a quick test snippet, just talk for 30 seconds, and listen back carefully with your headphones. You'll likely be really surprised how much difference those simple things make.
Awesome advice. Okay, so you've got your gear, you've treated your space as best you can with pillows and blankets. Now, the moment of truth, the actually recording. What are the key things to do before you hit that big red button? Because I know my tendency is just to jump right in.
Yeah, the temptation is strong. But Rodrigo really stresses this. Do a sound check. Always do a sound check.
Okay, what does that involve?
It's simple. Just record yourself talking for maybe 30 seconds like you normally would for your podcast. Use your normal voice, normal volume, then stop and immediately listen back with your headphones.
Listening back is key.
Absolutely crucial. Ask yourself, is it clear? Is the volume okay, loud enough, but not so loud that it's distorting or clipping? That's when the audio peaks are too high and sound crunchy. Is there any annoying background noise you didn't notice before, like a hum or a fan?
And if there are problems?
You adjust. Maybe move the mic slightly closer or further away. Adjust the input level or gain on your interface or USB mic. Maybe you need to close a window or turn off a noisy appliance. Get it sounding good before you record the real thing.
Okay, sound check done. Then during the actual recording.
Try to be consistent, speak clearly, maintain a relatively consistent distance from the microphone. And here's a big one. Don't stress about mistakes. Everyone flubs lines, stumbles over words, says, it's totally normal. Yeah, really. The trick Rodrigo suggests is if you mess up, just pause for a second or two, take a breath, and then restart the sentence or phrase cleanly. That little pause makes it so much easier to find and cut out the mistake during editing later.
The magic pause. Good tip. So the raw recording is just the start, then comes editing.
Precisely. That raw audio file is like your rough diamond. Editing is where you polish it. Your recording software, your DAW, is where this happens.
And what are the basic editing tasks we're talking about here?
For most podcasters starting out, it's mainly about cleaning things up. Cutting out the long silences, the dead air, removing those stutters, and the mistakes you marked with your magic pause.
Okay, cleaning.
Then you'll probably want to level the volume, make sure your voice stays at a consistent loudness throughout the episode so listeners aren't constantly adjusting their volume. You might also use some tools to reduce any distracting background noise that slip through.
Like that air conditioner hum.
Exactly. And finally, you'll add your intro and outro music, maybe some sound effects or transitions, drop in any ads if you have them. But Rodrigo reassures everyone, you don't need to become a master audio engineer overnight. Focus on making it flow well and sound clear and listenable.
Great. Listenability is the goal. Let's go back to Sarah, the baking podcaster. She had that little accident while recording, didn't she?
She did. Classic real-life moment. Apparently, she knocked over a metal measuring cup mid-sentence. Big clang.
Whoa, no.
But instead of freaking out or stopping the whole recording, she just, like we said, paused, cleaned it up quickly, took a breath, and then just calmly picked up where she left off.
Okay. So how did she fix the clang?
In her software, Audacity in her case, she could literally see the big spike in the audio waveform where the cup dropped. She just selected that messy section, hit delete, and maybe added a tiny fade to smooth the transition between the parts before and after. Cut out a few extra while she was at it, maybe boosted the overall volume slightly for consistency, and boom, seamless. You never know what happened.
That is genuinely such a relief for anyone worried about making mistakes, knowing you can just edit it out.
It really is. And it reinforces Rodrigo's big practical tip for this stage. The better your original recording sounds, the less time you'll spend editing. So invest those few minutes before hitting record, do the sound check, make sure the room is quiet, position the mic well. It pays off massively in post-production, saves so much time and frustration.
Absolutely. Okay, so we've recorded, we've edited, our episode is polished, sounding great. Now what? How do we actually get it out there so people can listen? This feels like the next big hurdle.
Yeah, this is where podcast hosting platforms come into play. You need somewhere online to actually store your audio files. Services like Anchor, which is now Spotify for podcasters, Buzzsprout, Libsyn, Podbean. There are quite a few.
So you upload your finished MP3 file to one of those.
Exactly. They host the file for you.
Yeah.
But crucially, they also generate something called an RSS feed for your podcast.
RSS feed? Sounds technical.
It sounds more technical than it is. Think of the RSS feed as just a special link that contains all the information about your podcast. The title, description, artwork, and most importantly, links to where your actual audio episode files are stored on the host.
Okay, so the host holds the files. The RSS feed tells everyone else about them.
You got it. This RSS feed is what you submit to the podcast directories. These are the apps and websites where people actually find and listen to podcasts. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Amazon Music, and so on.
Ah, so that's how you get listed on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
Precisely. You usually only have to submit your RSS feed to each directory once. It gets reviewed and approved, and then whenever you upload a new episode to your hosting platform, that RSS feed automatically updates, and the new episode magically appears in all those directories.
Okay, that sounds manageable. Submit the feed once, then just upload new episodes.
Pretty much. But Rodrigo makes a really critical point here. Just being listed isn't enough. There are millions of podcasts out there. You absolutely have to promote your show.
Right. Build it, and they won't necessarily come.
Sadly, no. You got to tell people about it. Share links on your social media. Tell your friends, family, colleagues. Maybe start an email list for listeners. A great tactic is to try and be a guest on other podcasts in your niche. Great way to find a relevant audience.
And the listing itself matters too, right? Like the title and description.
Oh, massively.
Yeah.
Good, clear titles for your show and your individual episodes are key. Write compelling descriptions. Use relevant keywords in your show notes so people can find you when they search in those podcast apps. This brings up a really important question Rodrigo touches on. In such a crowded space, how do you make your podcast stand out? Active promotion is absolutely essential.
Thinking back to Sarah's baking podcast again.
Yeah.
She didn't just upload and hope for the best, did she? She got clever with the promotion.
She really did.
Yeah.
So, okay, she uploaded her first episode to Anchor. Then she took that RSS feed Anchor gave her and submitted it to Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Standard stuff. But then Rodrigo highlights how she got creative. She actually took some short video clips with her phone while she was recording, showing her simple setup, the USB mic, her laptop, maybe the blankets in the background.
Ah, showing the behind the scenes.
Exactly. It served two purposes. One, it provided visual content to share on Instagram and Facebook, which often gets more engagement than just a link. Two, it visually reinforced the message. Look, you really can do this from home with basic gear. It made it relatable.
That's really smart.
Yeah. And she asked her friends and family not just to listen, but to please share the link too. Maybe leave a rating or review if they liked it. Getting those initial listens and positive reviews can really help with visibility in the podcast apps early on.
So it's about being proactive and a bit creative.
Definitely. And Rodrigo's practical advice here is gold. When you promote on social media, don't just drop a generic link like, listen to my new episode.
Yeah.
Try to entice people. Share a specific, interesting takeaway from the episode, maybe a funny quote, a surprising statistic, or ask a provocative question related to the topic. Give people a reason to click that link and listen. Make it easy and appealing for them.
That makes a huge difference. Give them a hook. Okay, wow. We've covered a ton of ground here.
We really have.
So thinking about this whole journey we've just walked through, what does this all mean for you listening right now? You basically have the blueprint. We've gone from just having that initial idea, that spark, all the way through to a finished podcast out in the world.
Yeah, we've demystified the whole thing, hopefully.
Right.
Understanding the essential gear, the right microphone, those crucial closed-back headphones.
Right, and figuring out how to make your space work for you, not against you.
Right.
Using blankets, pillows, whatever you've got. Turning even a closet into a viable studio.
Then actually hitting record, doing that sound check, editing your audio so it's clean and flows well. Getting rid of those pesky ums and ahs.
And finally, navigating the world of podcast hosting, RSS feeds, getting listed on Apple and Spotify, and crucially, how to actually promote your show so people find it.
What's really, I think, fascinating here is just how accessible podcasting has become. Rodrigo Marquez's guide, which we've really dug into today, just proves it. With the right information and approach, anyone can go from just having an idea simmering away to launching a show and reaching a global audience, sharing your voice, your expertise, your passion.
Well, pretty empowering when you break it down like that.
It really is. So maybe the final thought to leave you with is this. Now that you know it is possible, that the barriers aren't as high as you might have thought. What story, what passion, what unique insight are you ready to share with the world? Because starting right from your own home, it's simpler than ever.